to your point, that was the focus, and now we gotta grow. We got a lot of work to do, a ton, after, you come down from, the emotion of the game, you get back on the film, you get to work, you just realize that there's so many things that we gotta improve on. And that's what the focus is going to be, regardless of the opponent. And, you're gonna hear, the coach speak of it always is about us, but that is true. I mean, we're holding ourselves to a high standard. I think coming out of the game, we were able to build some confidence, and I think we're able to build some confidence, moving forward with some guys who hadn't played a whole bunch of football. Looking back on last year's team, that starting 22, I think, had almost 700 total starts under their belt, And so when you have a bunch of guys coming in who don't have that same experience, it's different. And so I think coming out of that game, they realize they can play with anybody in the country. That being said, it is a long season. There are so many corrections that need to be made. There's a lot of improvements that have to happen in all three phases. And so, that's gonna be the thing as we get back to work here. We got a team meeting at 2:30. We're gonna get into our game week routine, because leading up to the first game typically isn't always like a game week routine. So a lot of things to work on. And again, when you have guys who are a little bit more inexperienced, who haven't done it before, now, okay, we won a game, but now we have to get in a routine and start bringing it every week, and the consistency of what comes with that. Because again, our goal is to play all the way through January. I thought the design was right there. I think what you want to do with a young quarterback, sort of his first start, his first big spot right there on fourth down, is what you see. And he said, he felt the backside safety sort of running to the middle of the field. Back on film, you see him sort of running over the top on Max. It made a ton of sense to me. The fact that he thought he was running to the middle of the field in a single high look. And then, he got his feet, quickened up his feet, and put the ball on Max. It was towards the sideline, so maybe we would have liked it a little bit sooner. He was really selling the action, you could tell. So maybe, had another step or two in the fake that he could have snapped around a little bit faster, which would allow him maybe to see it a little better. But I thought he threw a heck of a ball. This is his first start ever. We got to help him out. It's good to see he and Max connect on a pass later on. But it was a good route by Max. Jeremiah was flying. I thought the design was right. And we're trying to be aggressive early in the game. And you hit that, who knows what happens? But that's a game of football. You got to move on, which I thought we did, and he did. But when you ask them, what did you see, and you get something that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're looking at the iPad, that helps.
We may have to get away from our game plan. 14 might have to be enough.
Yeah, I can't sit up and say to you guys that the number one goal is to just win. If it's 14-7, we have to be really, really excited about that. I think, in college football and before there was the playoff system, but even still now, and just being in a place like Ohio State, there's certain things that, there's quote unquote, the look test and style points, which is a pretty dangerous place to go sometimes, because the number one goal is to win. And if you get too worried about that, that can cost you a game. And so, especially in a game like this, the number one thing was to win the game. We wanted to establish an identity in terms of playing physical. I think you saw that. I think guys played hard in this game. I thought there was a physicality to the game. The execution's got to improve. We need to be more explosive on offense for sure. And so, yeah, I think you have to try to identify in the game what you're dealing with, and I think that for me is important. I do think the last drive when it was 14-7. I do think at that point, we need to be a little bit more aggressive right there. That first run didn't quite hit right, and then they played man on second down and kind of hemmed us up, and then we're in third and long, which is bad, especially with an incompletion right there. So, I liked everything we did. I'm a part of that, so I'm being self-critical. That last drive, we got to go win the game in that moment. That being said, you got a young quarterback, so you got to keep all those things in mind. But at the end of the day, you just got to win the game and then move on and grow from there. But we know where we need to go, what we need to do, and so that's where we're going to work today. Yeah, I think the first thing is what we talked about in preseason was the competitiveness, the grittiness. I think you saw that on Saturday, the way that our guys competed. I thought the way that we fought in the trenches. I thought the way that we tackled. I thought the way we blocked. blocked, I thought the way we ran, you could see all that, and that's a great start. Was it all perfect? No. Do we need to play even harder? Yes. The execution, the details, the fundamentals, like we got miles to go. It's not going to be good enough to where we need to go, but that's certainly something to build off of, and if that's going to be our identity, then we're going to have a chance. Well, I think it was a very well thought out plan, but these weren't all of a sudden brand new coverages. There's only so many coverages you can play. People play 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, there's only a few of them. And when you're talking about great coaches like Tim Walton, Matt Carreri, James Laurinaitis, Larry Johnson, these guys know our players and they know how to coach. So, when Matt comes in and kind of has some wrinkles and different thoughts on how we want to attack it, they all work together in there. Now, that sounds great, but the players have to go put it on the field. And I think that's where the credit really needs to go. I mean, certainly it was a great plan, and you got to give our coaches a lot of credit, but to see a guy like Jermaine Matthews, and he was all over the ball, there's a lot of great defenses out there, but you got to go put it on the field. A guy like Caleb Downs, organizing and talking and communicating, making sure guys are in the right spots. The guys up front fighting their tail off, Arvell and Sonny filling the holes, Peyton Pierce. So, but all that being said, we get done with this film, and there's just so many things to correct. So, but that's week one, with some young guys. But I think the thing that I was impressed with about the defense and the offense was what we saw in practice showed up in the game. That doesn't always happen, but it did here. And the more I thought about it, I think about the recruits who were at the game. I think about the fact that some of these young players were with us for those 2 weeks in the Cotton Bowl and the National Championship. The transfers who came in were with us. So although the guys who were in the program who maybe weren't starting, but they were getting a lot of reps, they were able to see what it was like. They saw the preparation, they saw the stage, and they obviously visualized themselves in a stage like that. And then the first game, to see that translate to the field was a good sign. But it doesn't always happen that way. Pass the ball, and there's a lot of things there. So we got to clean some things up on special teams for sure. We have to, fundamentally, just across the board, we've got to get better. We have to continue to work on sustaining high levels of play throughout the game. We have to attack the football on defense and create more and more turnovers. On offense, we need to be more explosive. We need to get to the second level and make guys miss, or get to the second level and block them on the perimeter. We need to, space out the passing game. I could give you a list a mile long of things we need to improve on. So, but we got it, and that's what the focus is going to be this week. Tackle. I thought Carson, Luke, the guys. I thought they played well. Was there some inconsistencies? Yeah. Was there some looks that they gave us that we weren't prepared for? Yes, for sure. I thought they had a good game plan coming in and did a nice job. But I thought if you just watched our play, you watched how hard we played, there's something we can build off of. And I think watching their reaction after we scored a touchdown on 4th and 1, watching the way they were finishing plays downfield, there's a grittiness to that group that, again, is a great foundation. I think when you look at the development of our team, I won't compare it to other programs, but I put it up against anybody in the country because not only, it's one thing to make it to the NFL, it's another thing to stay in the NFL. And that, to me, is where we've done a great job here. And, it's Coach Mick, it's our program, it's our schedule, it's Ohio State, it's playing on this stage, it's understanding how you handle yourself. There's just a certain level of expectation here in terms of performance on the field, how you handle yourself off the field, not, staying out late and running the streets after a game. Like, we got to get to bed. We've got a long season ahead of us. An excellence to preparation, professionalism in and out of the building. I think all those things add up, and I think we're somewhere around the mid-50s in terms of Buckeyes in the NFL right now. Maybe there's other teams that have more, but the guys that we have, just really proud of what they've done. And you see some of the guys, that have been in the NFL now going on, a decade, and then you have some of these new guys who are really excited about making a difference. But the feedback we get from our players is that when they get to these clubs, they're ready to go because of the structure here, how we do things. stage isn't too big, but just also understanding like, the offensive scheme, the defensive scheme. You're gonna be in an NFL style offense, defense, and special teams when you're here at Ohio State. So, and you're gonna be coached that way. So all those things add up to guys doing well once they're there. And when you talk to NFL personnel, they know what they're getting when a guy goes on their team. And we've just got so much great feedback about our players year in and year out. I think we all want to be explosive, and we need to create more explosive plays. But when you really look at the way the game played out, when we didn't convert the third and fourth down at midfield, then we get pinned inside the 10-yard line. And if we're not, in those moments, going to be aggressive down there, it's a long road to score a touchdown all the way down the field when you have a young quarterback where, you're pretty much trying to keep the ball in his hand for a short period of time. We're trying to run vertically against a team that has very good team speed, going sideline to sideline. And so we found ourselves backed up a lot. One time on the 1-yard line, and when you're in those moments, you have to be very, very careful with the football. And you get a little limited in what you can do with this type of defense, with this type of quarterback, with everything going into play. Then you look at, sort of how methodically we played the game. I think we only had 4 possessions in the first half. Possessions were limited. You add all those things up together, that's what you got when you have a couple of early drops. We did have a penalty, and then there you go. Late in the game, we had one drive where, we on purpose wanted to eat up time. I think we ate 4 minutes off the clock, got our first down. We were really moving really slow there. So that's really what played into the game. Now, like you said, moving forward, yeah, we know we have to be more explosive. Yeah, we need to get the ball in space and do those types of things. But that's all part of the journey of this group. And the first goal is just win the game and find a way to do it. And the guys that they have, it was good. To answer your question, it was consistency. Yeah, I think Phil plays with an edge, and he's been very, very consistent at that position. Ethan is still going to be an important part of our front, and right now, he's kind of swinging between right guard and right tackle, and so he'll continue to play, and we'll keep working through those things. But in this game, we thought they gave us the best chance to win. Well, those 2 guys in particular that you mentioned both have versatility. Arvell. But you look at Sonny, then you look at Caleb, and you see guys who can do multiple things. Then it becomes harder to recognize how you're being attacked. And I thought Texas did a nice job. Some of their guys and what they were doing, very similar. But yeah, the more versatility you have, then the harder it is to peg down what exactly is going on in that play. And I think our guys take a lot of pride in being able to disguise looks pre-snap and then give different looks post-snap, which again is all good, but you got to execute. And the coverage and rush have to work together. I thought the coverage was very good. There were some things we had to get better at, but I thought we did a nice job of for the most part keeping the quarterback in the pocket and not letting him just get out of there. He did have a couple, but you didn't just see wild rush lanes, and that's unselfish as well, because you did see some drop 8 where you saw some guys in coverage. They're not in that moment rushing the quarterback, and then you saw some guys push the pocket and sort of hold their lanes as opposed to just wildly running up the field after the quarterback. That was all part of the game plan. And so, when you're unselfish and you're not worried about your statistics, man, you can play great team defense. But that takes a bunch of buy-in from everybody. And so we're going to need that moving forward based on what the game plan is going to be.
All right, Coach, thank you.
All right.